Mario Tennis Fever is one of Nintendo's first big games of 2026, and I don't know if you'd even classify it as a big game. It's a Mario spinoff and the 100th tennis game by now, but we have some reviews to talk about. If you guys are unfamiliar with how we do this, we pretty much take a couple of reviews and we look at them and compile them into one final video, so that way we can give you all the pros and cons that a lot of people are having, while also showing you the Metacritic score and what the general population is thinking of this game so far. And then I'll give you my feelings and my thoughts at the end based on these reviews that I'm looking at. But first, we got to start off with the Metacritic score. Mario Tennis Fever is currently sitting at a 77 on Metacritic. Now, it's pretty much the middle of the pack. It's not in the lower end like we've seen with Tennis Open and Ultra Smash being 69 and 58 respectively, but it's also still not up there with some of the others, like GameCube's Power Tennis at 80, or the GBA's Power Tour at 81, or even the original on 64 at a 91, which is still the best in the series. Now, this is just about a couple points higher than the last game, Mario Tennis Aces, but it's sitting pretty much in the middle of the pack there. Here's a bigger list of most of these reviews that are already in, most of them floating around a 7 or an 8, a small batch around the 6, and the highest being a 10 from Daily Star. That's a pretty big score. A 10 out of 10 Mario Tennis game. I don't necessarily think I agree with that based on the stuff that I've already heard and seen, but let's get into those reviews. So today I have 3 video reviews to talk about today, IGN, Nintendo Life, and Game Informer. So the first one we're going to be talking about is IGN. I'm going to go ahead and say I really like Logan Plant's reviews for the most part there at IGN. In fact, the only one I think I did disagree with is his Brothership review, which he gave a 5 out of 10, which I definitely did not think that game was anywhere near that bad. But yeah, he reviewed Mario Tennis Fever, and this is some of the things that he had to say. He said it has the soul of a GameCube game, and it reminded him the most of Mario Power Tennis, obviously on said console. And this is something that I've said a lot, even just watching the trailers and the overview stuff. It looked very familiar to that classic GameCube feel, where it felt like a Mario game first and a tennis game second, which is something that he also mentions a lot, that there is a lack of a focus on the technical side, the way Aces was approaching, and more of a focus on the more party and fun side, like almost a Mario Party game with tons of wacky items and courts and things going around, which I'm going to say right now, I am a big fan of this. I love skill levels and skill gaps in video games, and I personally love competing in ranked modes and stuff, but personally, with something like a Mario Sports spinoff, I like these games to be more easy to pick up for anyone, because it sucks having friends come over like for Mario Tennis Aces and no one knowing how to really play the game, because with that game, you truly have to know what you're doing, because even returning a ball can be very difficult. Where this game, it's very easy to pick up and play. When I had my time with the demo, I found it extremely easy to just play without even having to learn the basics. And this same thing goes for pretty much any classic Mario sports game to me. Like Mario Strikers and even Strikers Charge were very basic control-wise compared to what they did in Battle League, and the same thing with like the Mario baseball games as well, where they're pretty simple to pick up and play. So yes, the ball is bigger, it bounces slower, and it's not anywhere near as technical as Mario Tennis Aces, which for me, I think is a plus, but I know that won't land with absolutely everybody. He states that there's some real fun to be had with different racket combinations. If everybody has a different racket, so many chaotic things can happen on the court, where it can make so many of the matches feel unique from one another. Now, Logan states that the game looks really good, but nowhere near a next-gen Switch 2 title that he was expecting. And he also said it aims for 60 frames per second, but there are some occasional dips, which I'm hearing conflicting things on that one, and we'll get to that in a second. But as far as the graphics, I mean, I think the game looks really, really good. As far as Camelot being the developers, a separate studio that just simply works on the tennis and golf games, I will say they do a really good job with the art style and the graphics. I mean, I don't know how much more, realistic or good you can make a tennis game look. I mean, everything looks pretty daggone good, from the court itself to the crowd and to the items flying each way. I don't really know how this is supposed to look any better. I think that's just the nature of a tennis game from the Mario franchise. But at the end of the day, I think the game looks really, really good. Now let's talk about this campaign. I don't know the exact story yet, but from what I could gather, it looks like Daisy gets sick and you have to go into some old temple in order to get a mystical fruit or something in order to help Daisy. Something along those lines. You end up turning into a baby, and then you go to the academy to learn how to play tennis, and then you're set off on your adventure for the second half of the story mode. which is strange. But regardless, this seems to be the most controversial mode in the game by far. Logan had a very disappointing experience with the story mode. He said it was only about 3 to 3.5 hours long, and it's more of just a tutorial, almost aimed for children, rather than an adventure game, which truly stinks. I was really hoping they would kind of lean into RPG aspects of a story mode for once and have this big ambitious thing. I know it's a tennis game, it doesn't need to have an ambitious story, but there are golf games out there like Golf Story that does have an ambitious story, and I feel like they might need to start leaning towards these directions with these sports games. Once you start getting up to like 7, 8, 9 tennis games or golf games, I feel like you've got to start doing something that's drastically different and bringing people into these games. And the single player content, in my opinion, is something that really does that, and apparently this game doesn't have too much good redeeming qualities with its single player campaign. From what I've seen so far, some of these missions look fun and entertaining, some of them look like they're pulled straight out of a Mario Party game or something, but at the same time, only being 3 to 4 hours sounds extremely sad. I don't know what's up with Mario games and their run times, but even the mainline games are extremely short. I think that's like my most wished thing for the next Mario game, is for it to actually be a full-fledged like 30 to 40 hour experience without even collecting everything, so that way to 100% the game it's like 50 to 60 hours or something. But yeah, even their spin-off seems to be really skimping on that story mode content, which just sucks to hear. Logan states that the talking flowers are extremely annoying, but they can be turned off everywhere besides tournament mode and adventure mode, which seems like not everywhere, so only a couple modes they can be turned off on. I noticed this in a demo immediately. The flower never shuts up. I mean, every hit, it's just constant chatter and banter back and forth. It's just, yeah, it's annoying. I really is not a fan of it. I've never been a huge fan of the talking flower, even from Wonder, but they just insist to keep bringing this thing back like they did in even Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 edition, which he was back again, and I'm sick of this thing. Now, there's also a Trials Tower mode, and he compared this to the events mode in Smash Brothers, where you have a bunch of like little event games where maybe a certain character is big, or maybe it's a 3v1 battle, or there's certain items on the field, so certain things like this. And he said this was actually really fun and a fun little replayable mode, and he wishes they just simply made a whole story mode out of these missions alone. And he states that after about 12 hours he had to put the game down and just was no longer being too interested in it, where it just kind of ran its course for him. It was just more of a fun distraction, and then he moved on to the next game, which yeah, that's kind of how Mario sports games go overall until friends come over. But his takeaway pretty much was the strengths lie in the multiplayer, where the weakness is definitely the single player, where there's just not enough staying power to return all so often. And after, like I said, about 12 hours, he felt like he's ran his course with the game, and he gave it a 7 out of 10. Next up, we have Nintendo Life, and they spend a lot of time deep into the story mode discussion, which I like to talk about because that's kind of what I've been excited for, and I'm starting to get a little let down by it. But they talk about the story mode, and it pretty much just sucks to them. It's not the best thing ever, and it's no more than 3 to 4 hours once again. But yeah, Nintendo Life gives us a slightly better idea of how this actually works, and states that pretty much what goes on here is the first half of the campaign, like I said, you're at the academy. You're learning very basic things with tennis. You're even taking little quizzes about certain moves and stuff that's just brain dead and simple. It's literally just a tutorial for the game for the most part. There's fun little mini games here and there, but it's just the slowest and most boring part of the story mode, it seems like, pretty much for everybody all around. But for the second half of the story mode, you actually leave the Mushroom Tennis Academy and go out on your adventure. And the world map might look expansive, it may look like you have a lot of game left, but nope, it's only just like the second half of the game, which is only about another hour and a half, where you're doing some pretty basic missions, apparently. Some of these look fun. Like, here's one where you have to actually hit the water bubble into the fiery parts of the pistons on the wall. That looks pretty interesting. And there's a couple other missions I thought looked cool, and even Nintendo Life said some of these missions were actually really well done, and they were actually fun with some fun little boss battles. But the problem is, it's just so daggone short. Right when you start having some good fun with the story mode, it's over before you know it. There's apparently even some like little dungeon areas that you can run around in, but they're over in like 10 to 15 minutes, and then you're on to the next thing, which once again, it's just a downer because yeah, first thing I thought of when I saw this was the Mario RPG remake. This looks kind of like it, even with its art style and everything, running around as a miniature Mario, this time as a baby Mario though. But yeah, I wish there were just more RPG aspects of this, actually feeling like an adventure mode. But of course, for Nintendo and for Camelot, it seems like it's more multiplayer tennis focused than it ever will be story focused, which just sucks. It always just is an afterthought mode. Now this is interesting. Conflicting with what IGN stated, Nintendo Life says that the game runs dang near perfect, said that the graphics are extremely crisp and really good, and that they noticed almost 0 frame dips at all through their entire experience. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, not sure. In fact, Nintendo Life's reviewers said that this was their favorite Mario Tennis game in the entire series, but it is just plagued by the fact that there's not much to do with that single player, but they can definitely see themselves returning for more and more online matches. Overall, Nintendo Life says it's definitely not a single player game, but one of the best Mario Tennis games and a blast with friends in multiplayer, and they gave it an 8 out of 10. And the final video review we have for you today is from Game Informer. It's not going to be too much new, most of it's stuff that we pretty much already have went over, but let's talk about some of it. First off, the first half of the adventure is an excruciating slow tennis school start, which we've already talked about, but they described it as excruciating, so it really must be that bad. I mean, everyone's really putting emphasis on that freaking school. Why? Why does there have to be a school? The second half, of course, has those cool dungeon crawling segments and really good boss battles, and then they really praised the Trial of Towers, where it's without a doubt the best mode in the game outside of just playing online. But yeah, overall, they pretty much give it the same exact responses as before, where it's a really good tennis game just plagued by some boring modes. Now, it seems like the mini games are actually just going to be a straight up hit or miss for some people. Some of these actually look fun to me. They really don't look like they have anything to do with tennis. Like, why is Baby Mario flying on a treadmill? But some of these look like fun little Mario Party mini games, like I said before, and I'm actually pretty excited to try some of them out. It just looks like they're like baby mode easy, apparently. Overall, Game Informer splits the two reviews that we just did from IGN and Nintendo Life, gives it a 7.5 out of 10, and says all around a really fun arcade tennis game with some questionable modes. Overall, this sounds pretty much what I expected. Unfortunately, I was having a slight hope that finally this could change like the whole verdict of Mario sports games and be this big out of nowhere 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 game that just surprised every one of us, that just came out the gate swinging for the fences for once, or in this case for the net. But it just looks like it's another Mario Tennis game with some cool new additions, but you know, some people say it's the best Mario Tennis game of all of them. Some people say it's definitely not, but I think everybody agrees that this story mode needs some work. But yeah, that's definitely for a separate video. But let me know if these reviews have changed your mind with the game. Are you still going to be picking it up? Are you not interested in the game anymore? Or are you kind of mixed, indifferent maybe? Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out to stay up to date on all things Mario Tennis and Nintendo in general. And like always, I'll see you on the next one, and have a blessed day, guys. See ya.